Hello and welcome to Rob's Retro Reviews. It's Halloween, and as such we're going to delve into a PS1 game that's truly horrifying. What is this game? Silent Hill? Resident Evil? Clock Tower? Parasite Eve? No, the game we're going to look at today is Hugo. You know Hugo, right? No? Well, he starred in a TV show which was aired in the 1990s, originating in Denmark, but quickly spreading all over the world. It was still being aired as recently as 2007 in certain countries. The TV show was unique in the way that it enabled people watching the programme to phone in and play a video game using the numbers on their phone in real time as they watched the programme on their TV. Hugo was a huge hit across the globe, and as such he starred in multiple other forms of media, such as comic books, a cartoon series, musicals, and of course, video games. There's even a feature film called Hugo, the World's Worst Comeback, being made right now. The PS1 game, simply titled Hugo, is actually a compilation of minigames that were originally created for the Amiga and the PC in 1992, so I suppose the creators decided that to keep Hugo relevant, they should port these games over in one package to the PlayStation, which would also introduce him to new audiences. So, is the game any good? Let's pop it in and find out. The game starts off with a very weird title screen where it's a static image with the box art. This quickly goes away and we're treated to an introductory cutscene. It plays out like a story being read by a voiceover. It introduces us to Hugo and his family,
who lived in a snail house deep, deep inside the troll forest.
Hugo's kids
were outside playing a game of round.
I'm sorry, what?
Were outside playing a game of round.
What?
Playing a game of round.
So already we know we're in for a treat because the voice actor doesn't know how to speak properly. And then the horror begins.
What a shot! The ball landed on the far side of the field.
Last throw to the ball is a rotten blueberry.
Hugo's wife, imaginatively called Hugo Lena, and his children are kidnapped by an evil witch named Scylla, and Hugo sets off on an adventure to rescue them. We're also introduced to Hugo's ear-piercing voice, which we'll be hearing a lot of later.
You just wait, Scylla! Your own evil will undo you!
But before he sets off on his adventure, the narrator decides to break the fourth wall, which is a bit jarring and unnecessary, but yet again, there will be a lot of this.
It's up to you to help him overcome the many dangers which now lie ahead on his journey to Scylla's sinister skull cave.
After that, we're introduced to the main menu, where we can select TV version or arcade version. There are several problems with this. Number one, if you don't know that Hugo has a TV show, you won't understand what TV version means. And number two, I'm pretty sure Hugo was never an arcade game, so I have no idea what that's all about. Obviously the main game must be the TV version. It's the one at the top of the screen, and Hugo was primarily a TV show before it became its own game. So it only makes sense to start with that. From the get-go, we already have quite a few minigames to choose from, so let's work our way through them, starting with Forrest.
Okay now, no time to lose. Let's get this game started!
Alright, let's do this. Forrest is basically a 2D endless runner where Hugo moves to the right of the screen on his own, and you need to time jumps and crouch to avoid obstacles. He moves very slow and it's quite insulting how easy it is. If you do happen to mess up, it'll probably be because of two traps which are close together and it not being obvious where you can stand and be safe, and where it'll kill you. There's no music and very little going on sound design wise, and this makes all the noises feel really forced and obnoxious. The graphics are barely passable, and it's obvious the bare minimum of effort went into porting this to the PlayStation. And it came out in 1998, it's not like it was an early game in the PS1's life cycle. Classics like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon were already out when this was released. This is probably a good time to mention perhaps the most annoying thing about Hugo. Every single opportunity he gets, he'll be talking to you. Starting a level makes him talk, dying makes him talk, and finishing levels make him talk. He always has some kind of one-liner that's either nonsensical or just so cringeworthy it's unbelievable.
I think I'll hang around.
He also always knocks on the inside of the screen and breaks the fourth wall, which becomes increasingly annoying the more it happens.
Don't be slow, I'm ready to go!
Well, if I could choose the pace you move at, maybe I wouldn't be so slow. It constantly feels like he's putting you down, even when you're doing well, and it makes it worse that I don't think this was the intention. It's just like he's being sarcastic.
You're so cool! We made it!
And when you aren't doing well, he makes you feel even worse about yourself.
Wake up! This is your last chance! Traldery, tralderat, tralderoot, this game is kaput.
What was I even supposed to do there? Anyway, back to the game. This forest level seems to be taking a long time to complete. It's not even like the levels are well designed because it's randomly generated. Sometimes you'll have a lot of obstacles in your way, and sometimes not. It's entirely down to luck. The creators couldn't even be bothered to make the levels and just made an algorithm to entirely make the levels for them. This makes the level incredibly boring. After a while of playing, the level will abruptly interrupt you with a cutscene showing the evil witch who kidnapped your family, who changes the weather. Hugo finally expresses some kind of emotion other than stupendously happy, although he reverts back to being happy while jumping. You would think that with his family having been kidnapped, he would be able to tone down his smile a slight bit. After all that adrenaline pumping action, you finally finish the level and are rewarded with a pep talk from Hugo.
We made it! Well done!
The next minigame is called Lumberjack, although the manual incorrectly calls it Lumber, and I'm pretty sure this is a spot-on interpretation of what lumberjacks actually do.
Now, let's go timber jumping!
Yes, let's. The objective here is to ride logs up a stream to reach the end. For some reason though, if you stay on a log too long, you'll die, resulting in losing some progress. So you'll need to alternate between the 3 aisles of logs at all times, while also avoiding some trees that poke out from the sides of the stage. My issues with this minigame are: why does Hugo die when standing on a log too long? It makes no sense whatsoever. Like, if Hugo was actually in this situation, there would be nothing stopping him from just staying on the middle log. I don't understand. There's also no indication of how long you can stay on the logs for, meaning that you have no idea when you're going to die. It's also really hard to judge when you're supposed to time jumps because the game is 2D, but it's displayed in a way that makes it look like it's 3D, so there's no depth, and the controls are delayed, so even if you press the button at the right time, Hugo will slowly react to the button press, and his jump animation takes too long. It feels like he's timber jumping on the moon. What the hell even is timber jumping?
This is what I call darkness!
This game is what I call darkness. Not only all this, but the same dead, practically non-existent sound design is in this minigame too. So to compensate for this, Hugo's voice and the jumping noises are too loud and annoying beyond belief. Sometimes you'll just die because there aren't any logs to jump on too. Something else that annoys me is how this and most of the other minigames just abruptly end. There's no visible goal at the end of the stage, the game just cuts out and says you've won. It's not only jarring, but it's extremely unrewarding. The next minigame is called Scuba, and Hugo has apparently found his diving gear he so desperately needed in the last minigame.
Where's my diving gear?
The objective here is to, yet again, make it to the end of a river. You die if you run out of air and you have to move out the way of oncoming obstacles. When you're at the top of the screen, you'll fill your air meter up, but you won't be able to see incoming enemies. When you're at the bottom of the screen, you'll be losing air but be able to dodge left and right to avoid things, and also to take shortcuts.
Do you think I'm a sandworm?
No? Honestly, this is probably one of the better designed levels of the game. It's a very basic resource management game which tests your timing and reflexes a little bit. That's all this game has to offer. Besides the barren soundscape, horrendous Microsoft Paint graphics, delayed controls and Hugo's stupid annoying face, this one doesn't do anything horribly wrong. It's boring, but it's not offensive. At least, not as offensive as the previous minigames. Now we're on Train. This is probably the worst minigame in Hugo. The objective is to make it to the end of a track while changing lanes to avoid the incoming trains. You look on the right side of the screen at a map of the area to predict the train's movements and dodge accordingly. The issue here is that the trains don't have to swap lanes just because there's a split in the track, so how are you supposed to predict if they'll turn or not? It's all down to chance. There really isn't all that much to say about Train. You move left or right whenever there's a lane change, and that's it. Other than that, you're just constantly moving forward with nothing interesting to look at. Next is Skateboard, which is one of the better minigames because we're actually doing something. As with almost every single one of these minigames, Hugo is constantly moving forward on his own, and the player has to move him around obstacles. This time though, he's on a skateboard, and the sides of the stage can be used as a makeshift half-pipe to make you jump if you go up it at speed.
Yo, let's go skate!
You'll need to avoid pits in the floor, rocks and beaver dams, which you can jump over or simply go around. Jumping using the half-pipe is dangerous because you lose some control when coming back down the ramp. But you can get some extra score by collecting treasure dangling from the trees. Not that anybody cares about what score you've got in Hugo. There's also some music. My god, I think this is the first minigame we've played in this collection that's actually had some background music. It's just a shame that it's literally a 3-second long loop. The graphics on this minigame are also probably the best of all of them. It still looks like it was drawn in a primitive version of Microsoft Paint, but at least there's some background detail and the environment actually changes a little bit while you play. They had to ruin some of the background detail though by making Hugo's lives cover up the volcano in the distance. Why is there no level in this goddamn game where Hugo doesn't turn to face us? Sound design wise, this is the best minigame. The sound of the skateboard on the two different types of terrain changes, it actually has music, and there's no obnoxious jump noise happening every 2 seconds. So far, Skateboard and Scuba have easily been the best levels. Not that they're good, just that they're the best out of an awful bunch. Next we have Mountain. The objective here is to walk up a mountain while avoiding rolling rocks coming towards us. Hugo moves on his own and the only input we have is to either jump to the side or jump straight into the air. There's also a very weird quick time event where you press square and Hugo will shoot a plunger gun and climb further up the mountain. My question here is then, why are we walking up the goddamn mountain if Hugo can just climb his way up more efficiently using the plunger gun? The controls are the main issue with this minigame. Jumping to the side has a weird delay, and because Hugo is a 2D sprite, it's difficult to judge depth. This will result in him falling off the mountain a lot. It's annoying.
I feel like a miner, 'cause now I'm in China.
What does that even mean? The sound is yet again way too minimal for its own good, and it's like the developers tried to hide it by making Hugo say
Yippee!
literally every single time he jumps. I hate it.
Yippee! 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 Yippee!
Also, why is there a timer in the top right of the screen if Hugo moves on his own? I can't make him move faster than he's already going. Finally, we have Plane. And my question to you is this. If Hugo has a plane all this time, why have we needed to go through all of the previous minigames? It just lacks any common sense, and I don't understand Hugo's logic, or the logic of the people that made these horrible, horrible games. Anyway, in Plane, you fly around and can actually control Hugo in 3 dimensions. The objective is to make it to the mountaintop while not running out of petrol. In your way are clouds. Yep, just clouds. Some will be thundery and you'll have to go around them, but they don't really get in the way in the slightest. There are also sticks of dynamite, but again, you can just go around them. The game doesn't even tell you that you're supposed to be flying to the mountain. I had to figure that out for myself. It does make sense because we were shown at the start of the game that that's where the witch lives, but a reminder would have been nice. For how much Hugo loves talking to you, you would have thought he would have said something to us. There's a map you can consult which shows us where the mountain is, and every single time you use it, the sound effects all just suddenly cut out. It's jarring and weird, and I don't understand why they did that. Again, sound design is minimal. You basically just have the drone of the plane and a few thunder sound effects, and that's it. After finishing the last minigame, well, nothing. Nothing happens. You're just thrown back to the level select screen and that's it. The issue with every single one of these minigames is that there's no reasonable challenge whatsoever. There's practically no game here, and I don't just mean with playing, I mean the whole game. I don't get what's going on. It just feels like there should be something more, but there just isn't. Well, I suppose now we should try our arcade mode. Okay, so arcade mode is the same exact thing we've already done, but this time the minigames are harder and there are actual cutscenes which progress the story. Not only that, but you have to unlock the majority of minigames, and if you lose all your lives, you lose all your progress and have to re-unlock them all over again. Why is arcade mode not the first thing on the main menu? If this was the primary mode and the way the game's plot is progressed, why is it under what is essentially the free play mode? At first, you only have the choice of the two minigames, Forrest and Lumberjack, and you can screw if you think I'm putting myself through a harder version of Lumberjack. So, in Forrest, you now actually control Hugo rather than him walking along on his own. You can make him move as quick or as slow as you want, and you can super jump by pressing X when Hugo hits the floor after doing a normal jump. There are more difficultly placed obstacles which are actually really hard to avoid sometimes. After completing this, you unlock Scuba and Train. I actually thought Train would be easier to complete, but try as I might, I can't finish it. The trains are completely unpredictable, and it's the most unfair rubbish I've ever attempted. Most of my time spent playing this whole game was spent trying to complete Train, so after a while I tried Scuba. Basically the only difference here is that there's less air in your tank, so I got through it pretty quickly. Now we're treated to a lovely cutscene where we learn the true motive of the evil witch.
With Hugolina's beauty and a little witchcraft, I will become the most beautiful witch in the whole Troll Forest. As long as Hugolina stays here with me. Hugo will never get his Hugolina back.
So, it's basically the same plot as Banjo-Kazooie, only Hugo's wife isn't turned ugly. Well, uglier. And wait a minute, why? Why would kidnapping Hugo's wife and kids allow her to become beautiful? It makes no sense. And she only mentions Hugo's wife. Why go to the bother of stealing his kids? Just out of spite? I should probably mention the obvious too. These cutscene graphics are abysmal. Like, truly abysmal. Moving on, we've unlocked Skateboard. I don't think this is any different to the TV version. I guess it might be slightly longer or have more obstacles, but I didn't notice if it did. So after that, we now have another cutscene. Aren't we spoiled?
There, children. Daddy Hugo will soon come to rescue us.
And that's the whole cutscene. Now we have Mountain. And as with Skateboard, I don't think this is any different at all. Why did they put in effort to make some of the minigames fairly different, but then keep others identical? After beating Mountain, we unlock a brand new minigame called Rope End. I bet this one is going to be an epic boss fight as a reward for getting this far.
Hurry up, Hugo! You've got to get us out of here!
You will never be free. Hugo can't beat me.
Wow, that's not very threatening.
I'm watching you, Hugo's little helper.
Oh, I take that back. Even after the witch's boasting, Hugo remains determined.
I think this could be dangerous!
And yet, you're still smiling. What happened? I won? I pressed a single button. I didn't even know I had a choice to make. I thought it was a quick time event where you had to press multiple buttons in a row really quick to beat the last boss. But I didn't. I just won by pressing one single button. And so Hugo rescues his wife and kids and tells them the story of the journey he went on to get to the witch's cave. The end. There are actually 3 different outcomes to the final boss fight. Pressing square turns the witch into a bird and she screams for some reason and flies away. Pressing triangle lowers your score and sends you back to the previous minigame, so either mountain or plane, and pressing circle captures the witch and gives you a substantial score bonus. The ending doesn't change at all, just the score that you have at the end. Hugo is a truly terrible game with almost nothing going for it. The sound design is minimal and practically non-existent, the controls are delayed and unresponsive, the gameplay lacks variety and depth, the story is about as bare bones as it gets, and the graphics are just horrible. I give this game 1 out of 10. The only reason you should play it is if you fancy a laugh at how obnoxious and irritating Hugo is as a character. He unnecessarily breaks the fourth wall all the time and unintentionally mocks the player even when you're doing well. Not to mention his overall design is unappealing. Who wants to play a game as a character that looks like this? Also, why is this the only game that I know of on PS1 that has an illustrated spine? Well, at least we can rest easy knowing that there was never any sequels made for the PS1. Right? Thanks for watching my first ever video review. I hope you enjoyed it. It took me a long time and a few failed attempts to get a video fully completed, and it's taken a lot longer than I thought to record and edit it too. If you want to read any of my written reviews, you can do so by visiting my blog, which is linked in the description. Oh, and happy Halloween everyone!